Hello, I am Yogini Sunita, and this is Meditation, Yoga, and Stuff podcast. I believe my dharma or my life's purpose is to share my understanding of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda, holistic healing science of India. I make these amazing wisdoms accessible and adaptable for present times. So let's start. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I'm going to talk about ancestral healing. Now, you may ask this question like why this is important? What is this all about? So, in wisdom of Ayurveda and also in wisdom of yoga, it is believed that we carry 7 generations of karma. Now, let's try and understand what Ayurveda is saying here. Ayurveda is healing science of India. And what is this 7 generation of karma is all about? So, the ancient wise being or sages understood this concept of karma a little bit different than what we are saying in the modern world now. Your dogma is your karma and things like that. It's more than that. It is basically we're carrying our ancestral information in our system, 7 generations of that. And this karma may be positive, may be negative. And with ancestors, positive karma, we may have opportunity to live life with luxury, peaceful life. We may have good fortune. And this all can come from something positive happened in our past generations. Now, let's look at it from the other perspective also, because humanity has gone through so much. In past generation, there may have been war, famine, there could be drought, there could be other ways of trauma in the generations. And these 7 generations we're talking about not just from the mother's side or not just father's side, but from both sides. So there is obviously going to be some sort of trauma in relation to all these, maybe war, all these thing, cultural trauma, wars were very common, a few generations ago. And so now that we are in this life where there are still wars happening at some places, how we are facing these kind of like traumas in our life at this moment. Okay, so let me explain a little bit better. Say, for example, there was a war somewhere in 7 generations, and one of our ancestors went through that trauma of living that war. And what happens that the next generation is basically how we show our love is by carrying that trauma. We show our love by basically saying that your pain is my pain. And we carry it to next generation without us even knowing that happens. So there could be a lot of anger, frustration, pain, sadness, and all this is carried over to next generation. And then we start noticing this in our life, that why I'm so angry, so much anger there, or why there is so mistrust, or why there is so, anxiety or discomfort, even though I have everything in my life, why it's happening. This is what a lot of my clients have explained to me, that, even though they have everything, maybe they are at the top of their career, they don't feel comfortable, or there is always constant anxiety or some sort of this uncomfortable feeling constantly happening in their mind. And they notice this and they try to understand it. And what happens that we may know what happened maybe last 3, max 4 generations, what happened, what kind of trauma or what kind of pain our past generations have went through. But we don't definitely know for 7 generations what happened. And so we carry this anger, irritability, maybe even nightmares or fearfulness. Also, inability to communicate about these things happening because we ourselves don't understand this is happening. So, this is where Ayurveda talks about these karmas or ancestral karma which we carry. There is a way to understand that, and that is through start moving towards a stillness, moving towards finding practices to calm our system down. And these practices, from yogic point of view, they are called Pratihara practices. So, what are Pratihara practices? You will find that these are basically bringing more stillness, more calm into our day-to-day life. And once we start doing that, we start noticing that this is not my trauma, or this is not my anger, and this is not something I need to carry, And so we then start working with interventions. Now, from wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda, it's very interesting. Ayurveda talks about this as almost like a possession. And it's almost like a possession of that past karma in our system. And it talks about basically getting rid of this possession. And there are certain rituals you can do, like regular daily puja. If you believe in the deities, then you can invoke the deities and they will help you to remove the shackle of the karma. Also, meditation practices, mantra meditation can be very powerful to let go of this hold of the karma on our system so that we will stop this cycle of karmic pain, carrying the karmic pain. So we can do that. Then also the self-caring practices are absolutely important, because a lot of time we don't really pay attention towards our self-care. We are constantly looking after others. We're constantly, doing things which may not be very helpful for our system if we are going through this kind of like a constant anger or constant irritability or nightmare. So to numb that, we usually, like I've seen people using substance abuse or trying to, numb this pain, and that's what it's happening. So how can we then use understanding of why we're doing this? So first is becoming aware of this is happening, becoming aware that these are not your thoughts, becoming aware that this is something you have been carrying from the previous generations. So how do we know that this is not ours and this is the previous generations? So this is what we start looking at. What positive things we have in our life at this moment. And if you start noticing and writing down positive journal every night, like 5 to 10 positive things happen to you, we start putting energy towards the positivity in our life at this moment. Once we start doing that, we start noticing that I am okay. Most of the time, I'm okay in this moment. So then still why this anxiety or anxiousness, or why is this anger or whatever that is coming up, for people going through this thing. And amazingly, this is very common. Like so many people are suffering with this. They don't even know that this is not theirs. So this is the ancestral trauma they are carrying. And this is also very much related to the cultures. This is also very much related to the upbringing, or the sanskara, as we call it in yoga. That means we have impression in our mind that the life has to be in certain way. Our memory also tells us that, give coloring to our experiences. So all this hodgepodge is happening in our mind. And we also want to be normal. And my question here is, what is normal? So this is where Ayurveda and yoga talks about we all are unique fingerprint of divine. And so what we can do is we can try and understand ourselves. When we start understanding ourselves, we start accepting. Acceptance is the key. We are winning half of the battle. And so what we are accepting is that at this moment, I'm okay. Then self-observation and self-inquiry is the key. Then you start noticing, okay, why am I getting maybe angry? Why there is this constant anger? Where is it coming from? And you can start noticing that if you have meditation practices, if you have Pratihara practices, which are the practices which are taking you from sympathetic mode to parasympathetic mode, these practices are relaxation practices, sound bath, these practices are mindful yoga practice and the asana practice, mindfulness practices. All these will help you to understand yourself better and understand that you don't have to carry this generational trauma anymore. And believe me, when we start doing this, we can actually keep down this burden, not just for yourself, but for previous generation also. So this is going to heal the previous generations as well. So you're one person doing this work on themselves is going to help the generation, 7 generation behind them, 7 generation which are coming. So consciously tune inwards and start your healing journey. Now, sometimes the trauma is so severe that we need outside help. And there are now therapies which you can inquire about and see if you can find someone to help you. Some professional help is going to be very, very important if your trauma is very severe. So make sure that you have all the help you need. Make sure that you are doing the self-care practices. Absolutely important. A lot of time people think, especially women, think that self-care is selfish. And so here we need to understand that it is definitely not selfish. We need that maybe 10 minutes of meditation. How can that be selfish? That won't be selfish. It's going to be tremendously beneficial, not just for yourself, but people around you. In wisdom of yoga, we believe that one person meditating can help 10 people around them. So it's not necessarily physically around them, but we are talking about 10 people in their life. So imagine that kind of like impact meditation has. And this is all about energy. So we are moving from negative energy towards positive energy. So this is what beautiful impact of meditation, the self-care practices, take a nice massage. Now you may ask like how that is going to heal my trauma. But our body is our slow mind. So we store a lot of trauma or information in our body. So the massages we take, or physical movement with awareness we do, or breathing practices we do, or meditation practices we do, all this is going to help us to release that held trauma. So that is always really beneficial to have these kind of like self-care practices. Absolutely important. Then also, if you have Sangha, in wisdom of yoga, Sangha is very important. What the word Sangha means, like-minded people. So if you have people around you with whom you can trust, you can share, no harm talking with them about this ancestral trauma. Consciously talking about this trauma is really, really helpful to heal. It starts the process of healing. If you're not comfortable with talking with someone, a professional help is going to be very important. So you can also start noticing that how not to repeat this thought process again and again. And this can be done with meditation practices. So meditation practices is kind of work like intervention in this constant cycle of negative thoughts. We are interjecting one positive thought. And then slowly you'll start noticing that daily meditation and self-care practices are going to be rock in your life that is going to help you to go through all this suffering. Now, there are so many practices you can do. So how to choose from, what to choose from? So I suggest that this is where your intuition is going to be very, very helpful. So you can start with one practice and see how that feels. Now, sometimes we have extremely positive reaction to the practice. Sometimes we have neutral reaction to the practice, and sometimes we have extremely negative reaction. Whichever the reaction is, observe that. I suggest that if extreme negative reaction, stop the practice, because definitely that is not the practice which is going to help you. So choose the practice which is going to help you. So positive reaction towards the practice is important. If it is neutral reaction, maybe, there is no harm continuing, but also observing after a few days that is it doing anything for you or not. Then if not, then dropping that practice and choose the right practices. And so, for example, you can start with, say, mantra meditation. So which mantra? Traditionally, Guru used to give mantra to the disciple, but we don't have Guru at the moment. For example, you don't have Guru and you are not sure you want Guru. So in that case, what can we do? So you can start listening to some mantras. Mantras are the vibration maybe you can connect with and maybe you cannot. So if you can connect with some sound of Sanskrit Mantra, that is going to be absolutely powerful meditation. Now, why Sanskrit Mantra? The Sanskrit Mantra is because these mantras can really change the vibration of our system. But if you don't feel connection to Sanskrit Mantra, why not choose a positive word in your language? It could be maybe peace, calm, whatever you want to move towards, and you can use that as a mantra. That will work as well. We are working with bringing positivity in our thoughts, in our system, in our karma. So start moving towards by using the mantra for meditation. Peace, calm, love, all this will work, or you can use the mantras of deities, whatever works for you. If you go to my podcast about the Sanskrit, you can find that information. And I have also created courses on the Sanskrit 2 courses, which are online courses. You can take them and see what will work for you. Especially the second course, Sanskrit Mantra, is about Sanskrit mantras. So you can do that. And again, or you can just listen online. There is a lot of information. You can do that and choose a mantra which is going to be beneficial. Now, if it is not for you, if mantra is not for you, you can start doing the practices which are physical movement. If you can connect with that, then physical movement practices like yoga practice or asana practice, I should say, with awareness is amazing. So it will help you to understand what we are holding tension in your system. And when we start moving with awareness, we start releasing a lot of held trauma, a lot of held energy, and we start to let go. So it's very beautiful to let go. And with yoga or asana practice, always end it with relaxation. Relaxation is like save button, where we save this information we have created, we save it neurologically in our system. And also the relaxation practices also help us to release the trauma a little bit more, because these are the practices which will help you to move from sympathetic to parasympathetic mode. There are also practices like sound bath, where the meditator uses or facilitator uses the sound to help you to release the held energy. So it's beautiful experience. You can try and do that live or, in face-to-face situation or online. If you're doing it, say, on YouTube or something like that, I suggest make sure you use the headphones to get the benefit of the sounds correctly. So all these practices, the mindfulness towards just observing your breath for a few seconds, that is also going to be very beneficial to just release the tension and release the held trauma. And I'll explain why. Just for a few minutes, observing your breath without even doing anything, just notice your breath, and your breath is going to start deepening. So when we are anxious, what happens that our breath is very shallow. A few seconds, if we start observing our breath, it starts deepening. And we start noticing that the breath is deepening, lengthening. And the beauty of that is we are oxygenating our system. When we oxygenate our system, what happens that it has positive impact on our brain, our whole system. So oxygenating system is really good. But that doesn't mean that you start taking like big breaths. It's not about that. Oxygenating system is just few moments of stillness, and observing your breath will deepen and give your system what you need. And so this is how wisdom of yoga understands that, how we can bring in more. We are working with prana, we are working with energy, we are working with oxygenation of our system. You can call it synonyms if you want, or it's one and same, but this vital energy force which exists within us, if it is vibrating on negative with our ancestral trauma, we are bringing in positive energy sources like positive practices to balance that negative, or move from negative to move towards positive energy. And this is what we're doing. It's actually very Yoga and Ayurveda is basically common sense. So we are basically working with, if we are vibrating on negative energy, if we are feeling down, if we are feeling either depressed or anxious, it feels, we use these words. We use the word, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling, my energy is blah, that kind of thing. And so yogis understood that, and they realized that we need to uplift the energy. And so to uplift the energy, we need to do the practices which will help you to uplift the energy. So this is how yoga looks at the trauma, and this is how Ayurveda also looks at the trauma. Now, the 7 generations of the trauma from both sides, that's what we're carrying. So we're carrying a lot of burden. And so there is also a lot of positivity from previous generations. So how about we tap into the positivity and let go of the negativity from our ancestral information? Can we do that? And this is where, if we bring stillness, we start noticing that what we are carrying, we don't have to carry. We can drop that burden and we can move forward. Now, science also tells us that we carry 7 generations of information in our DNA. So it's basically similar or same concept. It's just that different words have used. In Ayurveda, the words have used karma, and in modern science, we can see that, so much information is there in our DNA, 7 generations of information. And you can also see that we are carrying information of the diseases, information of 7 generations of diseases on both sides, like both parent sides. So we are carrying that. And on top of that, the cultural thing, on top of that, so much our DNA carries. So does that mean that we're going to have all those diseases which are in our DNA? The answer is no. The answer is no. What happens that our lifestyle can trigger the certain disease in our DNA. So we carry a lot of diseases in our DNA, but it is our lifestyle which will trigger the type of reaction to that disease, the type of disease we will have depending on what's happening in our life now. So it's very interesting to understand that there are a lot of diseases in our DNA, not necessarily all of them will activate. But then the other question is, why only certain diseases are activating in certain people? Like, for example, if there are 5-6 brothers and sisters in the family, only one brother or sister may get certain disease. And the question is why? Sometimes they get it even in their childhood. So this is where the law of karma is what Ayurveda talks about. We carry not just the 7 generation of karma, but our own karma as well. And as you know that Yoga and Ayurveda believe in reincarnation. So whatever the past life we have done, we are carrying that. And so we are carrying that in this life. So it's very complicated. And also, so when I mention these kind of things, people with, say, for example, cancer, in young age start saying that, oh, is it my fault then? And let me make it very clear that it is not. It is not your fault. It is what something which is in your DNA, which is triggered. We don't know the answer. We are not going to try and find the answer. What we are going to do is we are trying to tune into that what can we do now that it has happened. Say things like cancer or any ancestral or any diseases which you have, why it is happening now. In this now, we acknowledge that it is happening. We do not question. And then how can I help this situation? That's how we're looking at. Yoga looks at it like acceptance is the key. So we need to accept. And then what next? And this is where Yoga and Ayurveda can go hand in hand. What next? So the next is now what steps you need to take to help yourself let go of this trauma happening in your life or whatever is holding you back, basically. So try and let it go very gently. The practices which are gentle, which are calming, and which are self-healing. So this is how we can use understanding of ancestral healing, and we can not just heal ourselves, but we can also heal our previous generations and coming generations as well. So I hope that this helps you understand the law of karma, the 7 generations, and our own karma, past life karma, and then the karma which we are generating in this life. All this affects our whole being. And when we start doing the positive self-caring, self-healing practices, we are basically moving towards vibrating with really positive energy in our system. And that will help you to heal and move towards your optimal health. I hope that this podcast helped you to look into the maybe anxiety or thoughts, anger, and things like that, and notice that maybe these are not yours, and it is time to let them go, and it is time to move on with your own healing journey. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that you're taking this time out of your day. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye for now.